to get any more update on Killorn at all? I know you guys didn't skate today, but any sense that maybe he might be available for next game?
Yeah, hard to say right now, but I'd throw him in the day-to-day category.
Dan Rosen, NHL.com.
John, so much going into this series is made about the Canadians and their big 4 on D. You guys might have a big 6 on D, the way that you guys play. The forwards have taken to that 200-foot game over the past couple of years. You obviously have Vasilevsky. What have you seen in terms of the evolution of your defense and how they play and playing this winning brand of hockey versus a couple of years ago, maybe?
I think, to be honest, we've probably simplified our game. We've tried to take some of the risk out of our game. I'll admit I was right in it, probably partially the architect of some of the risk and the kind of greatest show on ice attitude we had about trying to score goals and as many as we could. And when we pulled back the reins here, our D core, first of all, we limited, some of the risks that we put in their game, but we really focused on the defensive side of the puck and then moving out instead of maybe having more of an offensive minded side and then relying on your goalie to make all the stops. But our players have really they've really grown together. I guess that's one of the big things, and the emergence of Sergachev and having the vets of Hedman and Mac and then Cherney, and it's a great group, but they will defend first, and that's the mentality they've taken as opposed to having the offensive side first, and I think that's really helped.
Steve Wino, Associated Press.
Hey, John, you mentioned the emergence of Sergachev and the idea of playing defense first. What do you remember about what he was like as a player when Steve Yzerman acquired him? And how much different of a player in terms of his commitment to doing everything, not just the offense part, do you see in his game now?
So with Sergey, when he first came in, he was like a lot of kids that come in to the league that had a lot of success in junior. He was probably bigger, stronger than most of the kids he played against. I know in talking to people in international hockey, Sergey was a thorn in everybody's side in the World Juniors. He played junior. He played north of 30 minutes a night, would take 2.5-minute shifts because he could. And I don't fault anybody for it. When you're the best player or one of the best players, you put the guys out there. The one thing Sergey had to round into his game was the defensive side of things. And he just had he had just things to learn. Like, he never played with two hands on his stick. That was the big thing we used to talk about, is he had to play with, he always had just one hand on the stick, and it was really hurting his defending. And he could use his legs to get out of trouble, but he had to use that big frame, and it just took time. And, talking about somebody that was used to the offensive side of things, our mandate with him was how to play in his defensive zone and how to play like a man down there. And it took him, a couple years to do that. But boy, has he ever gravitated to it now and takes pride in it. And I just have visions of Game 7 and the shot blocking clinic he put on in that last 30 seconds. It's just, he's come so far, and it's a tribute to him, because there are times, and there can be some players that just, they'll yes you to death and then go out there and want to keep doing it their way. And Sergey really bought into becoming a well-rounded defenseman, and it's been fun to watch him work, because that kid's got a bright future and a long one ahead.
Mary Fiallo, Tampa Bay Times.
Hey, John, this kind of got lost in the game one last night, but
what was that? Your computer?
Well, yes, but I'm back on my computer, so it's all good. John has his own way of getting on Zoom today.
Okay.
But I was curious just what your initial thoughts and excitement is just regarding the next year's Stadium Series and getting to play in Nashville in the Titan Nissan Stadium, and just how exciting of an opportunity that is for this franchise.
Yeah, how cool is that? I wasn't really expecting that. And you're just so dialed into your series now, and to find out we're going to play in an outdoor game is super cool. Like I'd still look back and see Crosby scoring in the snow against Ryan Miller. Now I highly doubt that'll be the same environment in Nashville, but you talk about a team that we've been really familiar with here, playing in the same division, and that it's well documented, the atmosphere that goes on at Predators game, and have that opportunity to be a part of that, and kind of the reopening of the league after what's gone on here the last 2 years is awesome. And to be invited to those games, your team has to have had some positive impact on the league, I believe. And, these guys have deserved to be on the national stage, which we are now. And I'm really happy for the players that they'll get to play in a pretty awesome environment that I expect will happen in Nashville.
JF Chamont, Journal de Montreal.
Good morning, John. I can guess that you grew up watching guys like Gretzky and Lemieux in the 80s or the 90s. But yesterday, with Kucherov getting 30 points for a second time in the playoffs, there's only 5 guys with 30 points 2 times in the playoff. It's Gretzky, Lemieux, Corey, Messier, and now Kucherov. What can you say about seeing a guy that you coach adding his name to those legends of the 80s and 90s?
Yeah, that is it's a heavyweight of names. There's no doubt about that. What's even more impressive about it is the era he's doing it in. And we talk about it, the high flying 80s and the scoring and everything went on. And it's remarkable in today's day and age when goal scoring and getting points is at such a premium. And he's been able to do that not once, but, 2 in a row. And I think his, points per game in playoffs period, even going back to 2015 is up there with all the big boys. And it's one thing to do it once, but if you can do it over multiple playoffs, it says something special about you and your talents, and to be able to perform at the biggest moments. And that's, I think, what separates the good from the great is the guys that can do it in the big moments. And he is certainly one of them.
Kyle Bukauskas, Sportsnet.
Hey, John, just further to Kucherov, I remember you saying last year that, he at times kind of almost became an extension of the coaching staff and reiterating the right message. And Ryan McDonough was just saying when he speaks up, it carries a lot of weight in the room. I'm wondering, from your perspective, how his personality has evolved as he has become more of an impact player for your team and in the league.
Well, you talk about the transformation of our team in the last couple of years. I think a big part of that has been the transformation of Nikita Kucherov. And I remember having meetings with him when he was a rookie, and just his knowledge of the game. Listen, I might be the head coach of the team, but it doesn't make me the smartest guy in the room. And you learn from players. And I was in awe of some of I look at a play and see it a certain way, and then Kuch might see it a different way. And I would remember thinking like, wow, I think he's right. And so you could see he had that mentality, but it was it's the maturity part that eventually you have to grow into. And he's carried us, it's well documented, the triplet line in 2015, he was clearly a huge part of that. And to watch us get so close for a couple of years in those game sevens and the conference finals. But I think, the tipping point was probably that series in Columbus, and he got himself, suspended for a game. And I know like Kuch is got so much pride, and I know, he probably in the end, if he could reverse that, he would. But ever since then, talk about somebody that's learned from experience. It's been him, and again, a quiet player. Like he doesn't speak a whole lot, but it's one of those guys. He's so well respected in the room, and when he was doing all the right things you want as a player, our team just gravitated to it. So when he does speak, like, literally everybody listens. And on the bench, he is the guy orchestrating a lot of the stuff that goes on in the games of where, getting pucks deep and saying all those things that you don't often hear come out of skill players' mouths. And he is an enormous reason we are where we are today. Is the emergence of the maturity of Nikita Kucherov. And like I said, I can't say enough good things about him.
We have time for two more. Ken Campbell.
Hey, John. Coming into this series, so much of the talk was about Carey Price and what he's done in these playoffs, and I mean, he deserved that. But I look at your guy, and I mean, this will be 4 years that he's one of the top 3 goalies in the NHL, according to Vezina Trophy voting. Relative to age, he's doing things right now that are, have been done by the all-time greats to ever play this game. I think his workload's been a little higher than Carey's, and his stats were a little bit better than Carey's. I'm wondering if he's not getting sort of overlooked a little bit, and if he's getting, the due that maybe he deserves here.
So I think, he doesn't get overlooked in our organization for sure, but I look at Vass and what he was kind of thrust into at an early part of his career. And I really believe like some of these goaltenders should groom themselves in the American League. I think it's a phenomenal league for them to grow. But he was thrust into some big time situations, like in 2015 when Bish got hurt. And he's playing in the Stanley Cup final. And I mean, he's barely over 20 years old. And so he had to learn quick. And I think at times you don't want to rush yourself into things. It's the mental makeup. Like this is what I think, Carey Price has a demeanor about him that, it exudes confidence. And he has an ability to turn the page. He has an ability to play at big moments, and he's grown into that. And that's where I think Vasilevsky is on that trajectory. And at some point, like somebody has to be the best. Like somebody has to be, like when you look at generational players, like there's defensemen in there and somebody rises to the top. And forwards, you've got a generation and somebody rises to the top. And I think in the goaltending department, I think Carey during his time, and still his time, but he's been in the league for 15 plus years. I think torches get passed, and I think Carey is still carrying the torch, but it's getting passed and to guys like Vasi. And don't say it's just Vasi. There's other exceptional goalies in this league. You just go through the Vezina ballots, like. I don't want to start naming guys, but it's pretty clear the guys that are up there every single year. But you have to have a mental makeup as well. And much like Sergachev, Vasilevsky is the mental and Kuch, and it's the mental makeup of these players. It's remarkable to watch them as they go through the league. And I think he's as strong mentally as anyone to watch his growth. But I think you're right. I don't think he's being overlooked. I think we might be, taken for granted how good he really is, and he's been proving it here now for a number of years, and I think he's just getting started.
Last question, Steve Simmons. Go ahead, Steve, if you have a question.
John, your name has been front and center for the Team Canada coaching job for the upcoming Winter Olympics. And listening to Gary Bettman yesterday, it sounds like all of that it may be going up in smoke. Your thoughts on the possibility of NHL players not participating in the Olympics, which I guess would mean you would not be participating in the Olympics?
Well, I didn't get to hear Gary speak, and so I can't. I only can go off what you're saying, and that would be unfortunate if the players weren't able to go. I can only speak for the guys in the room, like our team, and what gets talked about. And to be honest, nothing's been talked about in this playoff run about Olympics or anything. Guys are pretty focused on this. I can just go on what, the feeling of players of what they've thought in the past. And I know they genuinely love going to the Olympics. I think there is something about the best on best there is something about how proud you are from the country you're from, and to wear the flag. There is no question about it. I got a little taste of it in the World Cup, but it wasn't the Olympics. And I really believe, like, even my participation in the World Championships, it's amazing the pride the teams have, regardless like what country you're from. And it was one of the coolest events I've ever been to. So I can't even imagine what these players feel like when they go to Olympics, just to be around the best athletes of all the sports, whether it's winter or summer. So I could see how that would be tough for guys to swallow. But it's out of our hands. And I think all the players kind of know that. But regardless, whether you go or not, I know that, back, gosh, when was the last Olympics? 14 maybe? Or, 2010, the golden goal year. Like, it was, gosh, I flew to the Olympics for that, just to watch it. It was so exciting. And so I think the players would love to go, but again, it's out of our hands.
Coach, thanks very much for the time. That concludes the